Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that, and a lot of people need to learn that lesson too. But you wrote a book about how to be rich and happy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wrote that book when I was about 30. I was really happy. I was making good money. I wouldn't say I was rich, but what I did do is I studied all the books out there, and I interviewed a lot of very wealthy people. So it was really more of like a Malcolm Gladwell, where I researched these people, and I look back on the book now, and it's still right on the money. I think I channeled it from my future self. I know this sounds completely esoteric and goofy, but when I was writing, I remember like just coming to, I'm like, whoa, it's been like 3 hours. And I really think, because I got very clear on my future self, like I could look forward 15 years and see myself as older. I saw myself in Los Angeles in a really big house on a hill, having both a movie career and a personal development career. And from that perspective, I was giving advice back to my younger self, which sounds very odd and goofy, and I'm not particularly a goofy, esoteric, guy. But I do know.
I actually think that's one of the best exercises one can do. So I'm glad you're sharing it.
But
when you can actually see yourself in the future and look back.
But I just don't think I was wise enough to write that book at 29 years old. I honestly look at it now, I'm like, holy cow, who wrote those words?
Yeah.
Like, they're really, really wise. And it's funny because it was such a purge of emotion when I completed that book. It was called The Success Secrets of the Rich and Happy. It still sells all around the world. We've got the publishing rights sold in India and Australia and everything else. It's still a tremendously effective book, and people comment on it, but I almost feel like it was a gift. It was definitely me, but it was definitely a wiser version of me. So, I just wanted to write everything I knew about the self-improvement philosophies at that time, and I don't think I would change many words now. I mean, there's certain things that I would change because it's been about 10 years. Like, there's a whole section on health and nutrition. I would update some of those things. Maybe there's a little bit new time management technique. But the general principles are exactly the same. And I, at the time I wrote it, I wasn't really rich. I was pretty happy. I had done that, but I think I'm a lot happier now.
What are some of the secrets they told you about being, not necessarily rich, but having money and being happy? Because people say, oh, if you go for money, then you can't be happy because money is for evil people. I think that prevents people from making money.
Well, one of the fundamental chapters is about belief systems. And a very interesting graph I put up was belief system and result. And so if you believe that money is evil, and you believe that people are evil, or you believe people are animals, then what kind of person would be? And so one of these people is a serial killer. And so if someone believes people are just animals, that's a belief he might end up being, killing people because they're animals. Because it's very hard to kill people if you see humanity in them. If you believe that money's the root of all evil, you're probably going to be poor. Or you're going to be a Church of Christ preacher in a very small church in East Texas with not a lot of money coming in. But if you believe that Jesus wants you to be rich, you'll be Joe Osteen, and you'll have a congregation of 10,000. So your beliefs do dictate your absolute future. It dictates what you attract. It dictates what you see. I mean, if I say look around the room and look for the color red, we're going to look for the color red. But you probably won't recognize everything that's yellow because you weren't looking for it. And it's called the reticular activator system. Funny story about that. I was visiting with John Assaroff, who's a very brilliant man. And he was talking about the reticular activator system, which is basically an area or a concept in the brain. I don't think you could open up the brain and actually poke it. I think it's a concept. But it's a filtering process to filter out what it was. And I remember sitting in John's seminar, and I was like, God, this is fascinating. This is great. And I was taking all these notes, and he's been a friend of mine for a while. And then I got a copy of my book, and I had wrote about the same thing 3 years earlier. So I'm like, wait a second, how could I learn this, then forget I learned it, and then it was in the book.
Yes.
And part of it was because I channeled the book, and it came through, and I was doing research, and I was so immersed in it. So, even if I wrote something, it doesn't mean I necessarily used it in my everyday life. But that's something I think is super important. So wealthy people and happy people look for evidence to support their belief system. So if your beliefs are corrupted from religion, if your beliefs are corrupted from your parents, I mean, both my parents had a very poverty mentality. I'll tell you a funny story. You've ever told this story? Don't ever tell this story. This is our secret. My mom and stepdad had such like this, there's not enough money mentality. Me and my stepsister were dropped off at the Goodwill. They have those big canisters like at night where you drop stuff off, and they would have us jump into the Goodwill bucket and dig around for stuff that we wanted. Like, it's free stuff. And I was like 7 or 10 years old.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, what mentality? You can't go to Goodwill and go shopping. You have to go steal it from the drop-off of the Goodwill. Like, that tells you like this whole pattern of like how poor they thought they were. And even still at 70 or 80, she'll go to the discount shop and she'll get excited about buying a $2 sweater. So all those belief systems I had to unwind in my brain. And I had to identify them and go, I don't want to believe that anymore, or that's not true, or there is enough money, and yes, we can afford that, you know. And so you don't have to have a coupon to go to the pizza parlor. Really? Well, my dad still believes you have to have a pizza. You have to have a coupon to go to the pizza parlor. No, actually, we can afford pizza. Really?
Wow. Okay.
So